The Threx Dominion ruled the galaxy with cold precision, their fleets sweeping across star systems like an unstoppable storm, leaving behind only silence and submission. Planets surrendered before a single weapon fired, terrified by the towering ships that blocked out their suns, by the mechanical voices that spoke in ultimatums. Resistance was never an option. It was suicide. The Dominion's command ships, black as obsidian and armed with energy cannons that could vaporize moons, floated like grim judges over the skies of every fallen world. Their soldiers, tall insectoid beings wrapped in armor that shimmered with energy, walked through cities like ghosts, unchallenged, untouched. And so, when the Threx arrived at Kepler's Veil, a peaceful system on the edge of galactic maps, no one expected anything different. The people of the capital planet, Lumei, watched in horror as Threx warships appeared from subspace one by one, forming a dark ring above the atmosphere. Within hours, the planetary governor submitted, sending a broadcast of surrender. The Threx did not reply. They never needed to. Occupation began. Communication towers were shut down, power grids repurposed, and the Threx's cold technology slithered across the planet like vines. But unknown to the Threx, Lumei's last distress signal had escaped, slipping past jamming nets like a whisper in the wind. Far away, across dead zones and cosmic dust storms, the signal reached an old Earth exploratory vessel drifting near the Orion expanse. The ship, UHS Archangel, was not part of any active military force. It was a forgotten ship with a mixed crew of only 43, mostly scientists, engineers, and a few ex-soldiers too stubborn to retire. Its captain, Elara Voss, once a brilliant tactician, had been discarded by Earth Command after refusing to follow a suicidal order. The Archangel was her exile, but now it was her second chance. As the crew gathered in the dim-lit command deck, the distress message played again, static, then a trembling voice begging for help. The crew said nothing, eyes fixed on the holographic map showing the position of Kepler's Veil, now under complete Threx control. Everyone knew what the Threx were. Everyone knew what they did to anyone who stood against them. The silence was heavy until Elora stood. Her voice was calm, but edged with something cold. "We can't fight them directly," she said. "But we can do what humans do best, adapt, strike where it hurts, and disappear." The room tensed, but no one objected. They had all seen what the Dominion had done to Earth's outer colonies. If Kepler's Veil fell unnoticed, others would follow. They had no backup, no reinforcements, only themselves. That night, as stars drifted past the viewport, the Archangel changed course. Its old stealth systems were reactivated, patched and reprogrammed for deep insertion. Onboard AI drones began simulating Threx tech. Engineers rewired the ship's weaponry, turning mining lasers into improvised railguns. And Elora stared at the Threx fleet's known formations, studying every gap, every pattern. "They think they're untouchable," she muttered. "Let's prove them wrong." Days later, the Archangel dropped from subspace at the edge of Kepler's Veil, hidden inside a passing asteroid cluster. The system was silent, except for the cold hum of Threx activity. Their ships circled the main planet, like wolves guarding a carcass. Sensors confirmed it: no active human signals from the planet below, no outgoing transmissions. The world had gone dark. But Elora saw an opening, a narrow gravitational corridor that could allow a small ship to slip past undetected. Using old maneuvering tricks and stealth tech pieced together from scavenged alien code, the Archangel began its silent run. The crew held their breath as the ship floated between two orbiting Threx dreadnoughts, shields cold, engines silent. One wrong signal, one wrong move, and they'd be reduced to dust. But the Threx didn't notice. They weren't looking for resistance. Why would they? No one ever fought back. Inside the ship, the human crew prepared the first wave of infiltration, small data ghosts that would infect the Threx network from below. If they reached the surface, they could start unraveling the Dominion's digital web. When the first ghost was launched, it vanished into the planet's orbit, piggybacking on an atmospheric drift. Then another, and another. Back in space, a Threx patrol ship flickered, paused, then drifted off course, its systems blinking for a moment too long. The crew of the Archangel. watched as the Dominion's perfect machine began to twitch. It was small, almost invisible. But it was a beginning. Alara leaned forward, watching it all from her command seat. Her fingers hovered over the control console. "This is how it starts," she whispered. "Not with guns. With doubt." And above the silent planet, hidden among the stars, humanity prepared its first move in a war no one else dared to fight. The Archangel floated like a shadow through the cold dark of space, its old hull wrapped in a mix of earth, made metal and stolen alien tech, invisible to the Threx fleet that guarded Kepler's veil. Deep inside, the crew worked in silence, eyes tired but alert, their minds focused. The human ship was not built for war, but every room now held weapons made from mining tools, reprogrammed drones, and devices so experimental they might break apart if used too soon. Captain Alara Voss stood in the command deck, her eyes locked on the holographic map showing the Threx formation and iron ring around the planet below. Their ships moved in perfect patterns, like gears in a deadly clock. But Alara had found a weakness. Just one. A narrow path hidden by the orbit of a drifting moon and the electromagnetic static from the planet's atmosphere. If the Archangel slipped through fast enough and low enough, the Threx sensors might miss them or mistake them for debris. It was a risk, but every second they waited, more people below suffered. With a single nod from Alara, the Archangel dove. Its engines ran on silent burn, its lights off, heat masked. The ship raced through the shadows, dodging old satellites and debris from other long-dead vessels. Inside, the crew sat strapped into their stations, barely breathing. Outside, a Threx scout ship turned slightly, scanning the area. Everyone froze. Alara's hand hovered over the emergency cloak reset. The seconds dragged. Then the scout moved on. No alarms. No warning. The Archangel passed through. They were in. Below them, the once bright world of Lume lay dark, its cities glowing only with the cold blue of Threx outposts. No human signals. No signs of resistance. But as the Archangel reached lower orbit, the crew launched the next phase, a signal probe built to mimic Threx command traffic. If it worked, it would feed them hidden pathways through the enemy network. If not, it would expose them. Alara watched the timer tick down. 10 seconds. 5. A light blinked green. Success. The Threx believed it was their own transmission. Using it, the Archangel connected to the buried comm links on Lume's surface. Static, then a voice shaky, whispering but human. A survivor. Then more. Dozens. Hidden resistance cells scattered, starving, but alive. They had gone underground when the Threx arrived, cut off from each other, waiting for a miracle. Now the miracle had come in the form of an old Earth ship and a captain who refused to let humanity be forgotten. Using encoded pulses, Alara sent instructions. She could not land, not yet. The Archangel was still hunted. But she could give them power, direction, a plan. First target, the Threx Command Relay Station north of Lume's main city. It controlled all comms and drone movements on the planet. If it went down, the Dominion would lose control just for a moment, but that moment would be enough. At midnight, as clouds drifted over the lifeless city towers, the station's lights flickered. Sparks flew. Then, the entire structure went dark. From above, the Threx noticed the glitch. They began to scan. But at the same time, a false signal generated by the Archangel played across their channels, reporting a harmless power surge. The enemy believed it. And on the surface, the humans struck. Small groups moved like shadows, disabling patrols, taking back a comm tower, sending up the first real message in weeks: we are not alone. In orbit, the Archangel launched a silent drone into the upper atmosphere. It carried no weapon, just a device to listen and learn. The drone picked up panic in the Threx network. Confusion. They were losing grip, but they didn't know why. Their perfect control, their flawless order, was showing cracks. The Archangel wasn't fighting like a warship. It was fighting like a ghost. It didn't challenge them in open space. It made them chase shadows, doubt their senses, question each other. One Threx cruiser near the planet's pole suddenly powered up weapons and turned toward its own fleet, its systems infected with a false command. The other ships scrambled, shouting across channels in their strange, clicking language. From her chair, Alora watched with cold satisfaction. "Let them panic," she whispered. The Archangel moved again, shifting position above the planet's dark side. Its railgun, still hidden, was being prepared not to destroy a fleet, but to strike at a single critical target, the Dominion's orbital command hub, which linked the planet to the rest of the Threx war network. A direct hit there could isolate Kepler's Veil, making it the first free system in years. But they had only one shot. The weapon required time to charge, and if the Threx detected them, it would be over. So while engineers calibrated the aim, Alora gave the order to increase ghost attacks. More false signals, more hacked patrols, and more help to the resistance on the ground, who now believed they might win. In the dark corners of Lumia's cities, human eyes burned with hope. People who had given up on rescue began to move again, gathering tools, weapons, anything. They didn't know who Elora Voss was. They didn't know the name of the Archangel. But they knew someone out there had heard their call, and someone was fighting back. Above them, behind a veil of stars, the ship waited, railgun nearly charged. Alora stared at the Threx command hub, marked bright red on the screen. One breath. One shot. One moment that would shake the whole galaxy. The Threx Dominion believed in order, control, and perfect logic systems that could not fail, minds that could not break. But ever since the Archangel had arrived, their grip on Kepler's Veil was slipping, not because of overwhelming force, but because of confusion, fear, and the unexpected. Captain Alara Voss understood that humans could never match the Threx in firepower or numbers, but she also knew something the Threx did not. Fear spreads faster than war. The resistance on Lume was growing stronger by the hour, moving through the ruins of their own cities with new confidence, striking small but effective blows against the occupiers. Their attacks were not about destruction, they were about message, timing, and whispers. A Threx patrol tower found its power lines cut, and instead of a fight, all they discovered was an old Earth symbol sprayed on the wall, a phoenix. Another station found its cameras looping the same silent image over and over, an Earth soldier staring directly into the lens. Calm, unmoving, with a line of text in Threx, "We remember." These weren't random acts. They were carefully planned signals, meant to make the Threx ask questions, meant to make them wonder how many enemies they truly faced. The Archangel stayed hidden in low orbit, feeding new tactics and guidance to the Resistance, using stolen codes and backdoors to stay inside the enemy's systems. Meanwhile, Alora's team sent doctored reports into Threx databases, reports suggesting desertion, equipment failure, false orders, even rumors of betrayal among their own ranks. The Threx were not prepared for this. Their minds were built for order, for certainty, and now they found none. One Threx officer on the northern continent was found locked in his command room, muttering strange sounds, convinced that his own staff were human agents in disguise. His unit collapsed hours later. Another ship in orbit suddenly changed position, scanning the fleet around it with active weapons, only to be ordered down by its own admiral. The crew of the Archangel watched every moment from their cloaked ship, eyes on every screen, tracking every response. Alara knew they were close to breaking something deeper than just systems, they were breaking belief. On the surface, the humans struck again, not with bombs, but with light. A giant projector lit the night sky with a symbol no Threx could read, but all humans understood it was Earth, simple and blue, floating alone but unbowed. The image stayed for 5 minutes before the Threx found and destroyed the projector. But the damage was done. All across Lumai, small groups of citizens climbed to rooftops, painted their own stars, carved words into walls, made symbols from stones and old machines. They had been broken, but now they remembered they were not alone. In orbit, the Threx Command Council began emergency meetings. They could not explain the failures. They could not locate the source. They questioned their own surveillance. They increased patrols. They executed 2 officers suspected of sabotage, but it brought no calm, only more fear. Alara leaned back in her seat, listening to their scrambled audio feeds, translated slowly by the Archangel's AI. The Threx voices were usually flat, even mechanical, but now there were sharp edges, pauses, overlapping commands of motion. That was new. Alara turned to her team and gave the neck. Order Phase 3. It was simple but dangerous. Human drones fitted with fake Threx signals began to hover near supply ships and communication relays, pretending to be damaged Threx craft. When approached, they sent out harmless but confusing data spikes codes that made the Threx systems glitch and freeze for minutes at a time. Most of the drones were destroyed, but some caused enough chaos to delay operations across the fleet. It wasn't about winning a battle, it was about building a question in the enemy's mind. Meanwhile, more resistance fighters were trained in secret, not in how to shoot, but how to deceive, how to look like a Threx, how to jam sensors, how to move without triggering alarms. The war had changed. It wasn't one of weapons anymore, but of trust. And trust was cracking. On the third day after the Archangel's arrival, a message was sent directly to the Threx fleet from an unknown source. It was a simple broadcast, untraceable, playing on every internal screen for 1 minute. It showed Earth's history in short bursts: war, peace, struggle, fire, rebirth, and ended with the words, "You conquer worlds. We conquer fear." After that, the Threx lost control of a quarter of their surface outposts. Their commanders demanded answers, but none came. Sensors lied. Maps changed. Troops disappeared. In one outpost, an entire platoon was found asleep, their water laced with a mild chemical stolen from Threx supplies, carefully altered by human hands. Not one shot had been fired. Alara knew the time was near. The Threx were stretched thin. They still held power, but not certainty. And when an empire loses certainty, it loses everything. The Archangel's railgun was now ready. The target was clear, the orbital command hub that connected Kepler's Veil to the rest of the Dominion. If it fell, the entire system would go dark from Threx command. But Alara waited. Not yet. One final step remained. She sent a message this time to the people of Lume. It was short. No orders. Just one sentence: be ready. On the ground, in the ruins and shadows, humans held their breath, gripping old tools like weapons, eyes on the skies. And in the cold dark above, the Archangel aimed its single shot, not to destroy, but to finish the first true act of human resistance the galaxy had seen in centuries. In the quiet before the storm, the Archangel floated above the dark side of Lume, hidden within the shadows of the drifting moon that had once been used only for mining. Its engines were cold, its lights dimmed, and its crew silent, watching the glowing red dot on their screens that marked the Threx orbital command hub, the heart of the Dominion's control in the system. This was the moment Captain Alara Voss had prepared for, the moment every risk, every signal, every shadow move had led to. Below them, on the surface of the planet, human resistance fighters waited in silence too, spread across ruined streets, tunnels, and shattered cities, holding on to that final message from the Archangel: be ready. For the first time since the Threx had invaded, hope burned brighter than fear. And above them, Alara's voice was calm and steady as she gave the final order: fire. The railgun, hidden deep within the ship's hull and built from restructured mining coils and stolen Threx plasma cores, came to life with a low hum. The energy built quickly, pulsing like a heartbeat through the floor of the command deck. The crew held their breath. The target remained still, unaware, unprotected. In a single flash, the railgun discharged. A beam of pure energy tore through space, unseen by the naked eye but tracked clearly by the ship's sensors as it punched through the void and slammed into the orbital hub. For a moment, there was nothing. Then, a silent burst of fire erupted across the sky, the hub folding in on itself, its systems shattered, its control beams collapsing. The red dot on the Archangel's screen vanished. The lights across the Threx fleet flickered. One by one, their systems began to fail. Ships drifted off course. Communication towers stopped responding. Automated drones froze in midair. The entire Dominion network across Kepler's Veil stuttered and went dark. For the first time in years, the Threx were blind. And in that moment of confusion, humanity struck. On the ground, resistance cells surged from hiding, moving with speed and precision. They knew exactly which outposts had been weakened, where the Dominion scanners had failed, where their power grids had dropped. Explosions rocked key locations, not to destroy, but to cut links between surviving Threx bases. Fighters used hacked Threx comms to send out false orders, turning their enemies against each other. In the capital city of Lumea, civilians poured into the streets, not with weapons, but with lights beacons, torches, even old vehicle lamps shining into the sky, showing the Threx and each other that the people had risen. Threx units tried to respond, but their commands no longer connected. Their drones spun aimlessly. Their leaders shouted in confusion, unable to reach their fleets above. A single human broadcast played on repeat across all channels, hacked straight into their systems. The Untouchable have fallen. In orbit, the Threx fleet began to panic. Ships shifted formation, some retreating, others firing at invisible targets. One cruiser exploded after colliding with another that had lost its navigation system. The sky above Lume became chaos. Inside the Archangel, Alara Voss stood at the front of the command deck, watching it unfold with a steady gaze. Her crew worked quickly, launching decoy drones and false signals, making the enemy believe there were more human ships than just one. It worked. The Threx believed a full fleet had arrived. Their fleet broke apart, retreating from orbit in small, scattered groups, fleeing toward the edge of the system where they thought they'd find backup. But with the command hub destroyed, no backup was coming. They were alone. One by one, the Threx began to abandon their posts, their faith in dominance shattered. On the surface, human fighters stormed the last remaining strongholds, now poorly defended and leaderless. Some Threx surrendered, something never seen before in all their conquests. Others ran, blending into the shadows they once controlled. The resistance took them prisoner, not out of cruelty, but because justice had returned. For the first time, the people of Lume stood free. And for the first time, the galaxy had witnessed a human victory over the invincible. Alara didn't speak much, as her ship descended into atmosphere under full cloak, touching down in the outskirts of the capital hours later. Crowds had gathered around the landing site, their faces full of awe and disbelief. They had never seen the Archangel, but they had heard its name whispered like a myth. And now, from its hull, stepped the woman who had led the fight, not with a massive army, but with courage, patience, and strategy. Alara looked at them, at the ruined city behind them, at the stars above still blinking with the last traces of the enemy retreating, and simply said, "This is not the end. This is the beginning." The crowd erupted, not in cheers, but in quiet nods, in solemn understanding. They had lost much, but they had taken back more. News of the Threx defeat spread faster than any official message. Smugglers, traders, and even old military satellites picked up signals from Lumal, now free and burning with the fire of resistance. Across the galaxy, other systems under Dominion control began to listen. Some dared to hope. Some began to act. And far away, in the center of the Threx Empire, their leaders stared in silence at a simple report. One broken system. Complete collapse. The Untouchable had been touched, and they had bled. Far beyond Lume, past dying stars and silent systems, the story of the Archangel spread like a spark through dry grass, whispered between traders at old spaceports, caught on forgotten listening posts, and carried by exiles who had once given up hope. It began as a rumor one human ship had taken down a Threx-controlled planet. Few believed it at first. The Dominion was too powerful, too organized. The idea that a single vessel could bring them down seemed like fiction. But then came the signals. Not from Earth, not from governments, but from the people of Lume themselves, raw, shaky broadcasts filled with static and emotion. Messages in every human language, showing people standing free in the streets, Threx outposts, abandoned, and banners made from scraps waving in the wind. It wasn't a military victory, it was something greater, proof that the Threx could be beaten. Across the stars, in distant colonies forced into silence for decades, small groups huddled around old receivers and listened. In mining stations buried under frozen moons, workers paused to hear the quiet voice of Captain Alara Voss say, "You are not alone." And something ancient stirred inside them, something the Threx had tried to erase: courage. The Dominion's response came swiftly. In a panic, they began closing off systems, locking down hyperspace lanes, increasing surveillance, and hunting any who repeated the Lume's signal. But it was too late. The story had already spread. It was not just words now, it was music, graffiti, street plays, even legends told in whispers in the dark. Alara Voss became a name passed from child to child, a symbol, not of war, but of resistance. In a trade station near the edge of Dominion space, a group of former smugglers, once loyal to the highest bidder, painted the Archangel's silhouette on their hull and turned their ships toward occupied worlds, not to fight, but to deliver supplies, news, and hope. On a desert moon, where humans had been made to live underground for generations, teenagers hacked a Threx beacon and sent a simple message into space: Lume is free. Who's next? The Threx tried to crush these flames as they rose, sending more patrols, jamming signals, executing anyone caught spreading the message. But with each act of control, more cracks appeared in their perfect system. And on Earth, long thought lost to fear and isolation. For years, the Earth government had avoided open conflict with the Dominion, believing survival was better than resistance. But now, with proof that the Untouchable had fallen, they saw something they couldn't ignore: a future worth fighting for. Quietly, they began reaching out to old allies, forgotten resistance networks, and ex-military officers who had disappeared into the deep black. One of them was Commander Lynn Carter, a veteran pilot who had once served under Alara in a failed mission years before. When he received the Lume transmission, he didn't hesitate. He left his hidden station, found his old ship, and began searching for others like him. And he wasn't alone. In system after system, small cells formed, not bound by one flag, but by a shared belief: if one human ship could change everything, so could they. Alara, now on Lume, worked tirelessly to rebuild. The Archangel was in need of repair, its systems pushed to the edge during the final battle. But more than that, she focused on helping the planet stand on its own. She met with resistance leaders, organized supply routes, and helped coordinate signals to other systems. She didn't seek glory. She didn't give speeches. She simply kept working, guiding others the way she always had: calmly, carefully, and with purpose. And yet her legend grew. Children followed her through the streets. Fighters asked for her advice. Old soldiers offered their service. And still, she reminded them all, this is not about me. It's about what we do next. One night, as she walked the edge of a shattered city wall, Alara received a secure transmission from a source she didn't know. The voice was low, nervous, but filled with excitement. We intercepted a Threx signal. They've abandoned 2 more systems. They're afraid. She closed her eyes for a moment and nodded to herself. It was beginning. Not a war in the usual sense, but something far more dangerous to the Dominion: a shift in belief. Even Threx citizens, those who had been taught their empire was eternal, began to ask questions. In one sector, a Threx engineer defected, bringing with him data on Dominion communications and the locations of hidden command centers. In another, a captain refused an order to fire on a civilian transport, claiming, "This is not what we were told Earth was." The Threx were unraveling not quickly, but deeply. Their strength had always been in fear and silence. And now, both were gone. Alara and her crew received messages every day, some begging for help, some offering it. Not all could be answered. Not all would succeed. But each one added to the growing storm. The Archangel, slowly repaired, took flight once more, not to lead an army, but to continue spreading the message. Not just that humans could resist, but that they could win. And with every jump to a new system, every whisper passed along dark trade routes, every flicker of rebellion lit in the heart of someone who had once given up, the message echoed louder: the Untouchable have fallen. Hope is alive. and humanity has returned.